Hey everybody, hi Cohen, hi Matt. Welcome back, or Mateo. Welcome back to Young Engineers of Today. I hope you had a good couple of days. We're going to get started into HTML stuff. I know I said maybe we'd explore a little bit more of Google Sites, but we covered more or less everything um, that we can cover in sort of like a once-over, get familiarized with it kind of way. So for now, what we're going to do is we're going to get started on HTML. If we feel like maybe revisiting Google Sites and stuff like that, we can do that at some point in the future, but we'll focus on this now. We'll get some progress in this. We'll get you guys introduced to HTML at least. Very, very basic stuff today. Very basic stuff. Some of you have probably already touched on it before. I know you guys who have done Young Engineers before have more than likely already done this presentation. So it's going to be review. But review is always good to help solidify the stuff that's in your head. You know, that's what I like to say. At any rate, we'll get started with this. So today we're going to cover what is HTML and how does it work, preparing your editor and web host, sort of, and your first very, very basic web page. Very, very basic, super basic, ridiculously basic. Let's just get that out of the way right now. So let's start with what HTML is exactly. I mean, you've heard the term before. You may not have heard what it stands for. It stands for Hypertext Markup Language. That is what HTML stands for, because it's not exactly a scripting language and it's not exactly a programming language, although it can kind of be thought of like those in the sense that, like, you know, you use syntax and stuff like that in order to do different things, but it's not really either of those because it doesn't do what am I trying to say? Logic or math or really anything like that, like a lot of programming languages will do. So in this sense, it's a markup language. It provides formatting for content that will then, you know, appear. It first appeared on the internet in 1991. So that was 25 years ago. At some point this year, HTML celebrated its 25th birthday as something that, you know, was used throughout the world. And it became a global standard for websites, the global standard, in fact, for websites in 2000. That means that every single website today, everyone you visit, everyone everywhere, uses HTML. Now, it might be in its most basic and rudimentary form, it might just be a vehicle for, you know, CSS and JavaScript and all that kind of stuff, but or it might be something that just says, hey, here's the Unity plugin, and otherwise it's a blank page. But there is going to be some, at least, vestige of HTML in every single web page you visit. And it's gone through several versions. So HTML5 is the newest version, which is probably at this point a global standard. This is a little bit outdated. I wrote this last year, I want to say. Maybe it was the year before that. But anyway, HTML5 is the newest version. It probably has been accepted by the World Wide Web Commission as the international standard for websites. HTML4 used to be that way. Surprise, surprise, the older version of HTML used a number one lower than the current version. But it's probably already been replaced by HTML5 as the global standard. Now, this brings up an interesting point. This W3C, the World Wide Web Commission, this is just like a group of people that gets together and goes, hey, what are going to be the standards for how websites are displayed and things like that? Which I think is kind of interesting, you know, the fact that there is in a group of people, a commission of people who can essentially determine the, what am I trying to say here? They can essentially determine the standard for something as large and nebulous and uncontrollable as the internet. It's kind of impressive. Then again, I'm easily impressed. But I think that's kind of interesting that there's a group of people out there that say, hey, this is how websites should be built. And everybody else in the entire world goes, yeah, okay. And granted, it should be said that part of the reason why this is possible is because they control the means or they have control over the means through which websites are displayed, and we'll see how that's possible later on in the presentation. But the fact that this is a thing that exists, well, that's kind of impressive. So how does HTML work? How does an HTML document get from being just a bunch of letters and numbers and stuff on a plain text document to your excited face? A nice web page and your excited face. Well, it goes through a few things. An HTML document gets stored on a server, which gets pulled by a browser, which gets viewed by you. This first step, the HTML document, pretty straightforward. It's just a plain text document that just has writing on it. That's it. And that plain text document gets uploaded to an HTML server, or an HTTP server, which stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Now, it should be said that are you seeing a trend here? We've got Hypertext Markup Language. We've got Hypertext Transfer Protocol. You may know website links as their older name, hyperlinks. We were really obsessed with the word hyper when the internet was first starting to come out, because this was not just regular text. This was hypertext. This was text that could do all kinds of stuff. I'm not really going to go over how to create a server. That might be good content for like a future young engineers sort of thing, but that's not something I've really ever played with, and that's not something that's really in the purview of this semester. But that would be really cool to do in the future. Yeah, I like that idea. But yeah, it wasn't just regular text, it was hypertext. It could do all sorts of stuff. It could blink, you could embed GIFs in it, you could make it go to other places, you could, all sorts of stuff. And Hypertext Transfer Protocol is the basis for the internet and client-server interaction, which is much of what the internet is. So I say here, AKA how your computer and YouTube talk. Yes, that is the name of the interaction that happens between your computer and an internet server. Internet server being something that provides information to everything that connects to it, in this case, the content that's stored on it, and your computer visiting that server being the client. Like if you've ever played like an online game, like I've been playing a lot of Overwatch lately, the Overwatch that you play on your computer, that's the game client. And then they have servers that handle basically all of the information coming in from all of the game clients at that particular point in time, and then distribute information back out to them so that you can have, yes, I do. In fact, actually, I forgot to close my BattleNet before we started this up. But yes, I play on the PC. But yeah, that's essentially what's happening there. Is the clients send data to the server takes in that data and then sends updated information out to the clients, which then take that data and then provide an updated version of the game world. This is the same basic interaction that happens between your computer and any other website you visit. You connect with a client, you request information, that server sends the information, namely the web page, to your computer, the clients, and that's how you can visit the internet and get internet stuff. Oh, you never knew that was a PC game as well? Yes, it totally is. I don't have a PS4. I have an Xbox One. Well, it's technically not mine. It's my roommate's, but I don't have a PS4 and I don't own an Xbox One. So, and I've spent money on building this PC, so I might as well play games on it. Now, an interesting thing to note is that an HTTP server does not actually contain the website in its final form, in its viewable form. What it does is it stores the raw HTML file, just the straight up text file that tells a computer how a web page is supposed to look. It also contains any of the raw data like like media, like pictures and videos, or Unity plugins, or JavaScript or whatever. It contains that information as well, just sort of all in the same place, and then sends it all as raw information to your computer. They don't actually do any of the translation on the server side. That's all done on the computer side with your browser. Your browser actually takes that raw HTML file and translates it more or less instantaneously. And I mean, I say more or less because we all know that there's those times when it takes a minute for a web page to load and stuff like that, into a viewable HTML file. It happens at that moment. It sits there and it parses everything and turns it into a viewable HTML file. And there are a bunch of different ways to do this, and it can differ from browser to browser. So that's often why you'll find some browsers are faster than others. Some browsers will open a web page and it'll look very nice and neat, and some other browsers will open a web page and it'll look like a mess. Some browsers will refuse to open web pages. In fact, some browsers have issues with that. I'm certainly not circling one of them right now. But yes, on the back end, there are different ways a browser can go about parsing an HTML file and turning it into something that you can view with your, face holes. So that's why you can have different performance between different browsers. And that's actually something that you would need to get used to as a creator. If you decided to go down the road of creating websites, that would be something you would need to get used to, is learning how to play nice with a number of different browsers so that your web page can be viewed by the largest possible audience. Because if your web page does not work on Safari, suddenly the vast majority of Mac users, cannot actually see your web page, because that's the default that comes with Mac OS X. If if your web page isn't viewable in Firefox, suddenly anybody who's using Firefox cannot visit your website, and you're cutting out a large portion of your viewership, potentially your customer base, depending upon what you're creating your website for. Now, this is how something like the World Wide Web Commission can impose restrictions and standards on what is created, because the browser, at the end of the day, is the one that actually parses the file so that it makes sense to you. So if you can control the software, I say control and it sounds more insidious than it actually is. If you can have standards for the software that actually parses the file so that people can view it, if you can say, hey, you can only use this, this markup language, then they're going to be like, all right, I guess we can only use that markup language. And so now the internet can only use that markup language if they want their, as somebody creating something on the internet, you can only use that markup language if you ever wanted to be viewed by anyone ever. That sort of thing. So yeah, that's a browser's job, is to take that information and turn it into a nice looking website. Of course, nice is always subjective, but yeah. Whoops. Now, as far as preparing a website is concerned, creating a website is concerned, or a web page in this case, there are a few different ways to go about it. Now, professional web developers usually use very fancy, lots of bells and whistles and costly editors like Adobe Dreamweaver over here, this really old picture of Adobe Dreamweaver. Not everybody, but there's a fair amount of that happens. Now, the reason this is nice is because a lot of these programs provide a lot of tools, like the ability to, like a what you see is what you get kind of aspect, where you can see it in real time as it's supposed to look. Ways to more easily create more powerful tools that allow you to easily create things, and if you have a knowledge of HTML, even more ability at your disposal. Sometimes common web applications are already packaged for you and ready to add to your page, things like that. However, the downside of this kind of stuff is it's usually pretty expensive. Like, we're talking the order of thousands of dollars. And that's not exactly within our budget right now, so we're not going to mess around with that. But here's the nice thing about using HTML. You can easily use free text editors. Super easily. These two examples I have here, Notepad and TextEdit, these are the default plain text editors that come with Windows and Mac OS, respectively. If you have a Windows computer, you are going to have Notepad installed on it. What was that, Cohen? In the meantime, yes. As long as you're using a Macintosh operating system, you've got TextEdit installed on there. Most distros of Linux that come prepackaged as something ready to boot as soon as you install it, they're going to come with a free text editor as well. Now, you might already have something like Office installed on your computer. You might already have some free version of it. You can always go online and use what is it, Google Documents, but I'm trying to remember the Google Pages or something like that, I think. Google Text, Google Word Editor, whatever it's called. Yeah, you can use Nano. Oh, gotcha. I see. Yeah. My budget is like $1 right now. But yeah, like we're gonna shy away from using like Office and Google Drive and stuff like that because a lot of those are what are called rich text editors. And what we need right now is a plain text editor. As you can see right here, when you first open up TextEdit on Mac OS, it defaults to rich text. What we want to do is we want to make sure that it's plain text, so it looks like that. If you've got the console, the Lucida console font and all that kind of stuff, you're on the right track. You click on the Format menu and you select Make Plain Text in order to make it a plain text file. Now the reason why we need it plain text is because rich text allows us to do all kinds of fancy formatting stuff. Like we can do all kinds of different italics and bold and colors and sizes and fonts, just all kinds of stuff. Headers and footers and tables and columns and blah, 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 blah. But the problem that we run into with stuff like that is a rich text file actually has a lot more going on with it than just the text that you've typed in order to create this file. Let's say you type a book report or whatever, something, but you add font colors and you add pictures to it and you add columns and things like that. Well, it's going to have a markup language just like HTML. It's going to have a markup language of its own. And that markup language is not going to be visible to you unless you open it up in a plain text editor. But it's something that stuff like Office uses so that it can figure out how to make that file look exactly like it was, or as close to it as it was, as when you created it. So you create all this fancy stuff and you save that rich text file. Well, it's going to have all the stuff you typed as well as a whole bunch of markup that tells Word the next time it opens it how to format it so it looks the same. And all that extra stuff is going to make a browser freak out if it tries to open it. It's going to not know at all what you're trying to do. And it's not going to parse it. That's the thing with a browser. It doesn't tell you what's gone wrong in case you happen to type something incorrectly when you're creating this HTML file. It's just gonna parse it as best it can and then just dump everything else out as plain text onto the screen. So in a case like that, you're just gonna get a whole bunch of gibberish on the screen. It's gonna look like nonsense to you, but that's just because it's a rich text file. Anyway, that's what we need. We need a plain text editor. That's why we're going to use the free ones that come with the computer. We've already got a parser built in. That's our browser. So now that I've spent all that time just talking blah, 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 It's time to actually start creating something in HTML. Yeah, that seems appropriate. That's why I put that picture there. I know there's a typo here. I did not actually create this, but just, you know, just as long as you guys know. Because I had my middle school class, people were like, oh, there's a typo there. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Well, as long as you guys are sufficiently engaged, that's the important thing. But at any rate, we're going to open up our plain text editor of choice, and we're going to type this stuff on the right into there. And I'm going to keep the font pretty big, just so you guys can read it. Doc type, HTML, HTML, HTML. I believe Notepad++ should work as long as it's kept as an HTML file. But Notepad++ is pretty good at being a plain text editor. You can do other stuff with it, but I think it defaults to plain text, so it should be okay. Actually, you know what? It's totally fine. I've used Notepad++ to create web pages before. It's totally fine. But yeah, this is what we got so far. Then we've got a head tag, and a closing head tag, and a title tag. And we're going to say young engineers of today, and title, and body. Either body. So this is what I've got. This is my first web page. Hooray. This is exciting. There's not a lot of typing either. I mean, it's just like some weird angled brackets and some stuff, and then some actual text, and boom, done. Nothing crazy at all. So I guess raise your hand once you're done typing this. Mostly everybody, but we'll give it like another couple minutes just to make sure everybody's all caught up. So once you're done typing it, just go ahead and raise your hand so that I know you're done. How do you go down? What do you mean? Oh, I just hit the return key on the keyboard. That should work for you as well. Um, right above the shift key, enter, enter and return. Same thing. Is there a way to make a subtitle? Not in the sense that's related to this, and you'll see why in a minute. There are ways to make subtitles, yes, but not related to the title tags that I have here. We'll actually spend a little bit of time going over that today. Yeah. Hopefully this will address what you're asking. But if not, I mean, we can see if there's anything else. For sure. Okay. So now we got everybody all typed out. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go up to File. Whoa. Crazy. We're going to go to Save As. Hold on to your pants. We're going to click on it. Oh my gosh. We're going to find a place where we want to save it. For me, that's going to be the desktop for now. It can be whatever for you guys, though. I mean, it can be the desktop. It can be documents. It can be, whatever. But I'm going to save mine on the desktop. Just make sure you can find yours after you save it. I'm going to go down here to Save as Type. I'm going to select all files. Bam. So now file name clears itself out. But that's excellent. Because what we're going to do is you're going to type index.html. I'm going to type index2 because I already have an index from the middle school class that I did just before you guys. But you guys are, I know, it's nuts. You guys want to do index.html. Index is just sort of the kind of the accepted standard for the main page of the website. At least as far as like older web page creation standards are concerned, website creation standards are concerned. It's kind of like the main page, the welcome page, the thing that people go to when they go to your website. Is that the same as normal text file? Let me open up Notepad++ real quick and see. I'm going to hit save here. Bam, Notepad++. No, there should be a selection in Notepad++ that allows you to save it as an HTML, hypertext markup language file. You can also select all types at the top. Like, okay, so Notepad++. The only reason I can do it is because I actually have it here. Under Save as Type, you can either select all types or you can select hypertext markup language file. And then just, name it index.html. Excellent. What the hey is that? Just to give you guys an example of what a rich text file will look like inside of a plain text editor. There you go. Not entirely, but yeah. It can depend on the text editor, but yes. Huh? What? I especially like the string of null, 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 null down here. So yeah, plain text is the way to go. Close. No. Bam. Okay, so now that I saved, I know it is nothing. It's nothing compared to the voodoo magic from before. So now that I saved my index2.html, I'm going to go ahead and double click on it, and you can see it's got the the symbol for my browser, my default browser, in this case Chrome. So it knows, the computer knows, and Chrome knows that it is, in fact, a website, or a web page, excuse me, an HTML document for a web page. If I double click on it, it will open up a Chrome, and it will look like this. Exciting. Super exciting. So as you can see, we've got our, hey there, and the tab title is Young Engineers of Today, which corresponds to the title that we have here, Young Engineers of Today. Wow. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Yeah, this is essentially the hello world of HTML. Right here. This is the hey there world. I'm glad you're enjoying this. So yeah, let's take a minute to take a look at what exactly went into how we created this, because this is important. Knowing why you did what you did is important. But you guys probably have already, you guys are a smart bunch. You probably would have already been able to glean at least some of what's going on here. But let's talk about it. So HTML is, well, it's a markup language. It's not quite a programming language. It's not quite a scripting language. It's a markup language. But it is structured with discrete keywords, and these are called tags. So I'm going to refer to anything within these angled brackets as tags. So this is a tag, 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 this is a tag. It keeps selecting that, but this is a tag, this is a tag. Anything that's inside those angled brackets are tags. And that is like the super official, name for these things. For the most part, there are exceptions, as there always are in programming and scripting and everything. There are exceptions to this rule. But for the most part, tags come in pairs. So as the example we have here, we have HTML, and we have HTML with a /. These two are considered pairs, or paired, excuse me. The / simply means that this is the closing tag that corresponds with its opening tag. So the one without the / is an opening tag. The one with the / is the closing tag. Anything contained within those two tags is considered inside of it, is considered a part of it. So for instance, we've got our HTML tags here. The HTML tags simply tell the browser when the HTML begins and when it ends. Anything inside of these two tags is going to be considered part of the HTML document. Now you'll notice that there is something not inside of those HTML tags, this doc-type HTML business up here. That's simply because it's a requirement for HTML5 to tell the browser that it is HTML5. That's all that means. It's just like a little thing that goes before it that says, hey, everything coming afterwards is going to be HTML5. So how could someone on a different network open this? So basically you would upload it to a server. for instance, the Google sites we were looking at before. Or you could rent some web space on Amazon or, GitHub or something like that. And then anyone who would visit that website, they would go to that specific address that you've uploaded it to. They would automatically download this HTML file. Their browser would parse it in real time, and you would have your website. Your web page is showing everything I have. My web page is showing everything I have on HTML. More than likely, you have a typo somewhere in your HTML file. Because if it's opening up in the web page, that means that your computer is correctly identifying it as an HTML file, but if it's just dumping out the raw HTML, it means that there is a typo somewhere in the HTML file. So I would double check everything, make sure it looks exactly like what I've got here, because that's exactly what I'm talking about when I say that the computer doesn't really know the browser does its best to parse everything, but then it doesn't really know how to parse something, then it freaks out and just dumps out everything as a plain text. Usually where it starts dumping out things as a plain text gives you a clue as to where things went a little wrong. So, if some part of the document looks correct, but then the rest of it starts looking like raw HTML, you can get sort of an idea that that's the part in the document where things started to unravel. Like that's where you have a typo or something like that. If the whole thing is, make sure that you have the opening HTML tag and the opening head tag and all that stuff. Make sure you got the angled brackets like everything. Well, I mean, that's why we're all doing this, Cohen, because it's fun. I like programming more than I do HTMLing, but this is still fun to do. This is still enjoyable, and I like typing things on the computer and making them typed up in ways that the computer understands it and does the thing. So by and large, I am not picky when it comes to what sort of programming or scripting or marking up or otherwise computer-related talking I'm doing. It's all good. It's all fun. If you get a little bit stumped, Mateo, you can always just copy paste your entire HTML document into the question box, and I can take a look at it too. That actually does look okay. Let me try it. It parsed correctly on my computer. So maybe it wasn't saved as an HTML file. Maybe your browser is a silly goose. I'm not entirely sure. Honestly, HTML is not one of my first languages by far, as far as programming is concerned. So honk honk. It is a silly goose. Web page design and stuff like that is something that I've sort of dabbled with as a hobby, but yeah, if we're going by the the Dwarf Fortress skill rating level, I am definitely a dabbling web page creator. Not even a novice or a no title. That reminds me, I should play some Dwarf Fortress. Anyway. We can maybe spend some time looking at that later, see if we can't figure out what's going on. What browser are you opening it up in, Mateo? Chrome? Interesting. Because that's what I'm using too, obviously. I don't know. I'll spend some time thinking about it later, maybe at the end of class. For now, though, let's make a little bit more progress. So yes, tags generally come in pairs. A bit of text inside of some angled brackets is one half of a pair. So this is one half of a pair, this is the other half of that pair. This is one half of a pair, this is the other half of that pair, so on and so forth. You just, you just created another one? Excellent. The / means it's a closing tag. If you open up a paired tag, you need a closing paired tag to go with it. That is just a thing you got to do. Otherwise, it will not be able to parse it correctly. Not all tags come in pairs. Some tags are unpaired. This, for example, this comment here. Comments is a thing that you can use in order to basically keep notes to yourself in an HTML file, or notes that you can, if somebody's looking at the source, they can see, cheeky notes to yourself from another. Is that what's being printed out on your web page when you try and open it? What exactly is that? Just the thing you copy pasted into the question box. Interesting. It looks like it's got some additional. Anyway, yeah, so most of the time we get paired tags. Sometimes they're unpaired. Doc type tag is unpaired. It tells the browser to parse your file as HTML5. The HTML tags denote when the actual HTML code begins and ends. The head tags denote information about the document, like title that we got up here and the style across the entire page, which is good if you want to make like all the text red on your web page, but and the body tag contains everything within the body of your web page. And for that reason, it's usually the largest part of an HTML file for like pure HTML web pages. But yeah, like I mentioned before, anything anything that is contained within the head tags contains information that carries throughout the whole document. So you can do some preliminary formatting. You can add scripts to your web page when someone loads the page, and a few other things. But we used the title tag, which tells the browser what to put in the tab or window bar for your web page. Now, I did want to address this before we got too much further with it. Tags must always be nested. Must. That means that you must, if you're trying to close a tag, that is to say, if you're trying to, if you want to close the head tag or something like that, you must close every tag that was opened after it was. And that goes for everything else. So the last tag to be opened is always the first tag to be closed. The first tag to be opened is always the last to be closed. And it may not be the easiest thing to see necessarily. Let me go ahead and circle around this business here in order to help maybe illustrate it a little bit more. We'll fill it transparent, and we'll make it orange, and we'll turn it to pixel. And we'll copy and paste it down over here. So, and the reason I did that is because, as you can see, the HTML tag is opened up first, but it's closed last. The head tag is opened up second. It's closed before the HTML tag is. The title tag is opened up third. It's closed before the head tag or the HTML tag is. So it's nested. You can think of it like Russian nesting dolls, or curly brackets in programming, things like that. Now the body tag contains a lot of stuff. This is where pretty much everything that actually goes into your web page is located. So this tag normally contains the most information in your document if you're going with pure HTML. Well, as you can see here, the head and the title tag were already closed. So the body tag was opened. The body tag could be closed right immediately afterwards. However, the body tag did need to be closed before the HTML tag was closed. So it's just kind of floating out there in nowhere land, being all alone. But we'll do some stuff with the body tag later on here. Let's see if we can't. Can you edit it after you've created it? Yes. You just need to do your edits, save the file, and reload the page, as we're going to see here. So let's mess around a little bit with the body tag. As you can see, we've already got some stuff in the body tag. We've just got some text here that appears as plain text right here. However, there is the header tag. Now, this is annoying. The header tag is different from the head tag. It allows you to create larger size text in your web page that can be kind of used like a title for different sections of your web page, but it's different from the title tag because it's not actually the title that appears in the tab up here. So it's not a title and it's not a head, but it's the header, which can be used as titling. It's really annoying. You kind of run out of terminology because you need to use unique words for everything in a programming language. So sometimes you start resorting to weird mental gymnastics in order to be able to create a variable name that is unique and is descriptive and whatever. Anyway, so the header tag allows you to create bigger text that's automatically bold, and you can use that for titling. The lower the number is, the larger the text is. So H1 is going to be the largest one, while H6 is going to be the smallest one. So for instance, let's go ahead and change this normal plain text, normal boring plain text, to the header one. I'm going to create the closing tag here and the opening tag here because I like to do things backwards sometime. sometimes. So as you can see, we've just wrapped this text inside of a header tag, which is then wrapped inside of a body tag, which is then wrapped inside of an HTML tag. You get the idea. So I'll go ahead and save it. It'll update the file, and all I have to do is hit reload, or F5 on my keyboard. Bink! And there it is. Now it's super big, and we can mess around with this. As you can see, I'm just typing the same thing over and over again. And it goes all the way up to H6. So let's go ahead and save all this, and we will reload and echo, 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 echo. So that's, oh, it's all good. Here you go. Bam. So these are all the header tags, and the number denotes the size. So the higher the number is, the smaller the text is. So this might help with like the titling kind of thing you were talking about. Does that help answer your question at all? Like creating subtitles, you can do like a header too and make it a little bit smaller, that kind of a thing? Maybe, possibly, potentially. I believe you were the one who was asking that earlier, how you could do like subtitles and stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah, you. Say single caret. Okay, good. I guess that's good. Uh, I see. I thought you said it is possible. Is it possible I missed part of the setup? No, I don't think so. As long as you saved it as an HTML file on a plain text editor, although this additional stuff makes me think that it's probably not a plain text editor. I thought Nano was, but oh no, you aren't using Nano. Cocoa HTML writer, that's that is interesting. I'm not entirely sure where all the, yeah. I mean, I couldn't tell you what's going on. Oh, you added an image to yours, Caleb? Nice. Hmm. Okay, yep, sorry, I was just trying to see if there was any information I can help you out with. All right, yeah. So that's the header. The header allows you to create titling. There is also the paragraph tag, which is just simply a P, like so. Paragraph tags automatically separate anything else not inside the paragraph tag, from the stuff inside the paragraph tag with a couple of blank lines on either side. So it allows you to do stuff like this. So as you can see here, paragraph tag, this is a paragraph, closing paragraph tag, opening paragraph tag, and this is paragraph 2, closing paragraph tag. Notice how they're right next to one another. It will automatically format it so that they are two separate paragraphs. So I can show you that here. So two separate paragraphs. We're going to be like, welcome to my super amazing 100% web page. You'll find all of the best stuff here. They're right next to one another. However, they are separated from one another in the actual website or web page. How do you change the font? Like, so it's not Times New Roman or, yeah, that's done generally with like CSS and stuff like that. And I believe we'll be able to start to touch on CSS next week. Yeah, but that's something that can totally be done with CSS. CSS, by the way, stands for Cascading Style Sheets. I don't know why it's cascading. I'd have to look that up. But yes, Cascading Style Sheets. And CSS, as the style and the name implies, is for styling your web page to look as wonderful and as gorgeous as possible. It's actually very good at that. It's a lot more powerful for stylizing a website than just straight up HTML is. Now, HTML5 is meant to sort of merge some of the capabilities of CSS into HTML, so you can just have more plain flavor HTML websites that look like what CSS can do. The paragraph thing? Yeah, sure. But yes, CSS is very, here, I'll separate them out. CSS is a very powerful tool, very, very powerful for formatting your website. You can do things like frames and pretty buttons and tables, and I mean, you can do tables in HTML as well, but you can make them look really nice in CSS. You know, just all kinds of stuff. And then you can do JavaScript where you can have animations and actual programming, and you can make your own incremental game if you wanted to. Like, you know, like Cookie Clicker or something like that. When's the CSS? We're probably going to touch on CSS sometime next week. Get through all the HTML stuff, all the intro HTML stuff, and then we'll do some CSS. Some very, 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 very rudimentary CSS. Mostly, I just want to get you guys like introduced to it, like a taste of it and stuff like that, kind of what it looks like. And if you want to do more with it, then I encourage you to explore it and, you know, mess around with it and stuff like that. At any rate, it is 9:01, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to do the poll questions like we do pretty much every time from here on out. I'll leave it open for question and answer, and then we will break for the weekend. So here we go. First poll question incoming.